watching the game said, hey, those kids aren't supposed to do that.
Yeah, and then there was a time frame before that got,
Pass the rules.
yeah, but send it to AG, not even to San Luis. That was kind of shady.
Exactly.
Okay, guys. Onward to number 35. The board reviews its governance agreements regularly. I think Hannah printed out for you all your governance handbook. Did she get,
Yeah,
put that
It's in
out
the
for all?
packet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here would be my suggestion. I don't think now's the time to review it because you have elections coming up in November. You may want to take a look at it and see if there's anything, obviously it's something you should all be aware
It
of.
was loose.
It was loose, she printed it out.
Looks like behind your paper, right here.
Yeah, back there, yeah. she
10
put it-
pages or so.
But you may want to take a look at it. I took a look at it briefly and it's sort of hodgepodgey.
It's
Yeah, our name's
very
not even on
hodgepodgey.
here.
Hodgepodgey.
Right.
So I'm going to send her these sample protocols and the stuff we talked about today. And maybe something before you have the election that you may want to take a look at. Decide what protocols you need, get rid of the ones you don't, decide what norms you need, get rid of the ones you don't, and have something in draft form for if you have new board members. So it could be something that you can all adopt together after the election. Because what you want to do with a governance handbook is you want it to be something that the whole board agrees on, has input in, and adopts collectively. And I don't know that now is the time to do it. You haven't paid attention to it thus far, so I don't think it's going to do you any good for the future until it's something that you all agree on. But it might be something you might want to just individually review and maybe put a half hour aside sometime to talk about before you get a new board. So that's what I will say about number 35. Does that sound like a plan?
Yep.
So what we should do maybe is look at this and highlight things that,
Yeah, and the other thing, the sheet I gave you in your folders too is a page called, and this is where I come in. And again, this is the beginning of our relationship, not the end of the relationship. I don't leave here today and you never hear from me. I'm available by phone, as some of you can attest. You can call me and I call you back, and I'm happy to continue to give you information. So in your packet is something called 30 protocols to consider. So if you're looking through your governance handbook, and let's say you don't have a protocol on staff reports to the board. What do you
Don't have
want?
staff.
Yeah, well, what do you want, Scott's reports to the board, what do you want those to look like? You know, do you want to have a protocol on how they're delivered? Like, for instance, they're 15 minutes or less in length, and they contain the highlights of what you want us to do, what the financial implications are, and what the alternatives are.
So then are we gonna have to say you can only do one a week, and then somebody's gonna do 15, 15, 15, 15?
So sometimes boards actually come up with, you know, parameters around staff reports. Sometimes boards need a protocol on explaining no votes, like what I said to you before, that you don't explain no votes, you talk about it during deliberation. So look through these 30 protocols to consider, and I have samples on all of these. And if there are ones that aren't in your handbook that you feel like you need.
So can I ask you a quick, just looking
Sure.
at this for, so I see in January, there's an institute for new and first-term board members.
Yeah.
Is that something, if we anticipate, because 3 of us are up for election,
Yeah.
is that something that the district could register for 3 now and cancel later without a fee in case there was 3
I would
people
say
that?
in January, no, you can get in, we don't limit that.
Oh.
We can take up to 200 people and I maybe get 70. So we do those around the state, so we don't limit those, so you don't have to sign up for it now, or you can, you know.
We just might want to approve it in our budget now, so
Yeah, you might
if
wanna
there
think
is
about it in your
one.
budget for board member orientation.
But that's similar to a workshop held at the annual education conference the day before.
The day before, that's
the
exactly what she's
conference
talking
starts.
about, yeah. We do
Yeah,
it,
well, no, she said January, February.
Yeah, I was just looking
which
at
would
this
be
one.
A repetition, I
it's
just wanted
it's
to clarify
exact,
it's
I teach it, it's
repetition.
exact repetition. I
Of
teach
the
it the
same
day,
thing.
it's pre-conference, I teach it in pre-conference.
Yeah.
And then I teach it in January, I teach it in March, I teach it in April, I teach it around the state.
Yeah, but
Different
Right.
places,
for
Luana,
us,
yeah,
any place around the state's a long trip.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, and if
Sacramento
we-
is 3 hours, or LA is 3 hours, or San Francisco.
I know.
It's always. a long
Sacramento
trip
is
for us.
not 3 hours, that's 5. You must be flying.
yeah, really.
Get there in 3. I want to ride with you next time.
Kind of plane do you have?
But you do want to think about it from a budgetary standpoint to
I
make sure you
commuted
could
back and
allow
forth
some
for-
funds.
Well,
for
that's
that.
what I mean, because I mean, and not knowing who's going to run or what's going to happen. If somebody's working, getting 3 days off to go to a pre-conference and then AEC for 2 days, I mean, that might be limited. I just think we should put some money aside now and let's say we do, but the new people are elected, they may not be able to attend.
Right.
But the fact that it's put aside, oh shoot, we didn't approve that, we can't wait, we can't do it right now.
Or you know what, you guys, here's the other option that you have. If you can't send anybody to any of those conferences, again,
Bring somebody here.
You can call one of us to come to your district and work just with your new board members, or work a half day with your new board members and a half day with you, 3 hours and 3 hours. 3 hours to do team building, 3 hours to orientate them. It's up to you. Or you could all sit here for 6 hours and sit through their orientation as well. It's up to you. So there are lots of options. And I'm hoping my thing that I'm trying to work on with CSB is we need some online learning opportunities. So for those board members who get elected who don't know anything and just want to get some classes under their belt, maybe to be able to take some online learning stuff, at least just to get them going.
That'd be cool. You're working on that? That's
Yeah,
neat.
I'm working on that, and we're working on 3 more of me. We're trying to hire, or I'm mentoring right now 3 more people who are gonna do what I do and Luann does around the state, because we're really short-staffed.
Get Leslie back.
I would love to have Leslie back, but I think she's permanently retired. I don't think she wants to come back.
And Bob retired too, right?
Bob,
They were a good team. Leslie
no,
and
Bob still does MIG. He still does our Masters in Governance course. But he lives in Arizona, so he flies in every once in a while. Okay, so 54 was the last one we needed to address. 54, the board uses cohesive messages in communicating district priorities, goals, and needs in terms of community leadership. So how do you communicate with your community? How do they know what your goals are, what you spend your money on, et cetera?
It seems like it's mainly word of mouth, I think, but.
That's one of the things that I'm, want to work on next, especially with the broader community. I mean, we communicate a lot through Parent Square for parents, but that doesn't reach non-parent community.
Right.
And so I think that there's some definite improvement that can happen there.
I think it's a good idea to have a communication plan, and it doesn't have to just be your responsibility, Scott. Some board members can take responsibility. Like, I'll give you an example. Some districts I work with, one board member is a member of Lions Club, another's a member of Rotary or whatever. They take the responsibility to once a year get on those lunchtime agendas and give them the little 5-minute or 10-minute or whatever it is dog and pony show about what the district's doing, celebrating your successes, talking about what you need community support. I mean, you're all the mouthpieces of this district.
But I would say one positive thing though, Scott, too, is the advisory council meetings. I mean, either Scott or Terry's there. I did it when I was president too, just kind of present, not that everybody's there, but the opportunity is.
Right, it's a Citizens Advisory Committee. We attend monthly there, and we're on their standing agenda to do a little report.
Nice.
But again, you get the same 6 people, like you were saying.
Yeah.
One of the things that I had a concern with it, because I think I listed this one down, is that this isn't a community that has a lot of children or families that have children. And so sometimes when I'm talking to the public who aren't a part of the school, they had either no idea what the school does or how it's made up, or the things that goes on at the school, or worse, there's some misconceptions, particularly after the high school option situation, where it was kind of it didn't get in the newspaper very well at all, or a newspaper, and so that these misconceptions were just flying all over this community of what people thought on the board, what the superintendent was intending to do, what other districts were thinking at the time, and I think it caused a lot of dissension in the community. You could feel it in the meetings that we had for these were information meetings, and these people were coming loaded for bear.
Yeah.
And pointing fingers and that sort of thing. And that I think we really do need to change how we get information out to people who have no children here, who have long since retired, who vote.
Right, especially if
They'll
you're passing
do
the ball
that
on.
really well. There's no question about that. So
And one of the things that hopefully will be at least a start to address that is, I have been thinking about a plan to, once we bring the new personnel on board and Hannah's retired, working with them to, publish a newsletter that will publicize that it's available. People can submit their email address to receive it, and in that way, and I don't know what's practical right now. I need to kind of figure that out, whether it's every other month or whether it's every month. I'm hopeful to do every month, but I'm not sure we'll have enough content to really make a nice newsletter every month. But
yeah, typically I see a lot of people in the community who don't want to go to
A meeting.
meetings. They don't want to be involved in a Lions Club or something of that sort, because that takes time away from them. And a lot of them who came here don't want to give any of their time anymore. They've done that. We're over. By the way, how's the school going?
Yeah.
That's usually.
Do you
the
guys have a
question.
Facebook page?
we do.
I don't know, but I think some of our population doesn't use computers. You
That's
know, so
understandable.
an email.
Or want to.
Right. But also, I hear that concern not just with the school. It seems Cayucas in general, like that guy Ren, I put something on the Cayucas Next Door a while ago about a fire department meeting. He got all fired up and came and went on.
That's not a bad place either, those next door. I mean, I crack up because like mine's about, well, what dog is lost this week or
Right.
whatever.
No,
I'm
but
like,
what
I don't
I'm-
have time for this.
But what I'm saying is
Such
there's
good
no, I've
information.
heard that from other places, so I think what I've also heard is people really miss the, whatever that newspaper used to be in just Cayucas.
Like a little local.
It was a local thing that you could get
Called
some.
the Breeze? No.
Breeze, yes.
Breeze, yeah.
People liked that. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we
Make
have-
it, make a class.
But it's been gone for 20 years.
It doesn't
already.
matter though.
I can
That's
go
not
farther
that,
than
it's not that
How about the
long.
Sun Bulletin?
More than
Come on.
10.
Yeah.
That was great.
But regardless, I'm still
That's
hearing
true.
from people that they miss that. You know, because that had community information, so I don't know if there's a way.
I wouldn't get into publishing
No, no,
anytime
no, no.
soon.
No, but I don't know if there's, my point is I don't know if
my
there's
own
a way that
business.
we
It's
can
always me.
collaborate with other groups, because we're not the only group having this having this concern about information out. So if there's some way that we could collaborate with other people, individuals, because other groups have information and there's community information.
Yeah. The only thing I would say to you, I'll give you a couple of hints on community information. You got to keep it really simple because we all talk in educationese, right?
Right.
And you got to keep it really simple. I put in your packet an example of a district that I think is doing it semi-well, but I still think it's too complicated. This is Bear Valley Unified. They did this little, they took their LCAP, which is 120 pages, and they turned it into basically 10 pages of goals and stuff. But I like it because it's really clear. Like goal 1 is college and career readiness. And they talk about how they're going to measure college and career readiness. Like they want to up their percentage of kids who complete the A to G requirements. They want to have more professional development for their teachers. So they talk about actually how they're going to do that, achieve college and career readiness. And then on the back side of that goal page is, here's how we're spending the money to do that. We're spending $688,000 on qualified staff. We're spending, you know, $35,000 on professional development. We're spending, you know, this
But
kind of
there
stuff
is
on
still a
student
lot of,
mentoring.
there are a lot of acronyms in here
Still-
that people
it's-
aren't gonna know.
No, you're right. It's still a lot of, it's still too, that's why I said doing it semi-well. It's still really complicated, but I like the fact that
How did they send this out? Or-
they publicized it on their website, and also they did a little flyer, and the newspaper in that area did a sort of a really revised version where they just took pieces from the goal, how much they were spending, and what they hoped to achieve. They kind of put it into a really nice perspective. Yeah, you'd have to have a newspaper. But some districts just do it in a board, you know, board update or district update. Here are 3 goals. Here's how much we're spending on them. Here's what we want to achieve, or here's what we're doing on the things that are important to the
So
board.
the 3 people that come to a board meeting.
Yeah. Well, you can actually put them up in the coffee shop, or, you know, you guys could distribute them around, or have a little, it's a 1-pager.
That is a good
basically.
idea.
Yeah, not a bad idea,
I
but
mean,
this
yeah,
is
coffee shop, post office, if they would do it.
post
the
office,
bank.
wherever, to let people
Market.
know.
Meeting coffee shops, so we could
And, you know, I came from a community that had a lot of retired people too at Lake Tahoe. And when we tried to pass a bond, it was real difficult because people didn't want to vote for it because they didn't have kids in school, right? So we spent 2 years doing such a campaign to let people know that these kids are the future of our community. And if we don't educate them well and hopefully have opportunities for them to come back to, we're going to lose them all, guys. Because it's not like we're some booming economy. We've got skiing and a lake, you know? That's basically what we have.
And a skate ramp on a
And a
lake.
skate ramp on a lake. We don't have tech here. We don't have a lot of businesses being developed, you know, in Lake Tahoe. You can't, I don't know, probably like your coastal commission, you can't build anything there anymore. If you want to build a new building, you have to tear down an old building because they're not allowing any more coverage of land.
Really?
For environmental reasons.
Sure.
Oh yeah, they even tell us what colors we can paint our house for environmental reasons. They have to blend with the trees and the mountains. We
Can't have a bright yellow?
We can't paint our house bright yellow or pink. No, it has to be an earth shade. So I mean, we have all kinds of regulations there, and it makes it very cost prohibitive for people to start a new business there, or something like that. So we had to sort of take people down that path about why investing in education of our students was important, because they're the futures of our community. We want to keep our downtown vital. That means we have to open new businesses. We're old. We don't want to open new businesses. Hopefully those young people will come back to town and open new businesses here to keep the town alive. Otherwise, we're done for, right?
By what margin did it pass?
It passed barely, you know, after 2 years of working on it, but it did pass.
Nice.
And now, that was the first one when I was involved in Measure S, and now they've passed several since then, because, you know, they've got everybody on board, and we are seeing that. Our kids are coming back to, my son lives in Truckee, my oldest son, and he lived in the Bay Area for a long time, so
Nice.
we do have our kids coming back and starting businesses and doing things, so it's good. So,
I
whatever
want
you
the
do.
chef to move here with you.
Yeah, he may, you never know.
Open up a restaurant.
Yeah. So whatever you guys do,
Just
keep
not
your
an antique
communication
store.
simple and think about some, you know, guerrilla marketing techniques, if you will, for getting the word out there. It's up to you to kind of pass it along. Okay. So we have a little bit of a time. Can I do a little refresher for you on some other things and see if
No.
it comes up? And then we'll let you go. Like no more than 15 minutes, I promise. Unless there's anything else pressing that you want to discuss that we haven't gotten to. Everything on our
I'm
list.
sure as soon as I leave, I'm gonna think of some.
Again, so if anything comes up and you need help navigating it, you can call me. So let me just pull you through a couple things. Unity of purpose, we talked about why that's important, and that means all of you sort of being able to state in your elevator speech what direction you're rowing in and what efforts you're all taking together to get there. Your unity of purpose should be built on your core beliefs, your mission, vision, your goals, and your success indicators. Oh, it's not working. Oh, it's not working. Fabulous, you gotta hear it.
Val, you our tech guy for theater?
I am?
No, I said, are you?
Hang on, we're gonna stop moving so you can hear me. I've never had it not work before, have I? Oh, I think my speaker died to the back end. Let's see if you can hear me on my computer speaker. about your unique purpose. What do you believe in with regard to your children? Do you believe that all of your students can graduate ready for college and the workplace? These are 3 questions that I often ask school boards to think about. If I wasn't standing on the slide, you could see them. Think about what you're most proud of. When you have discussions, think about the things that you're most proud of. Those are the things that you want to keep. Those are the things you want to make sure your budget reflects, the things that you're proud of and the things that your legacy things that you want to keep going. What do you hope to accomplish as individual board members? You know, Susan, you talked about technology. Think about your end goal when it comes to technology and when you're talking about how you want to get involved with that. What does the end goal look like?
And still maintain a relationship with my son.
Yeah, still maintain a relationship. Don't make
He
me
loves his technology.
don't make him eat too much top ramen. So think about what you want to accomplish. And you know, I draw this little guy up here, and sometimes I have boards do this exercise, but I think I've put you guys through enough today, where I ask you to come up and talk about what skills do you think your children need? What kinds of skills do you need? And often they draw on this stick figure, things like the ability to collaborate. You know, I think that's one of the biggest things that kids will need in the future.
4 C's.
Yeah, because, you know, they're saying that by 2020, 70% of our workforce is going to be independent. People who work independently at home in their pajamas, you know, working for particular teams. I mean, you see that in the business I was in, marketing and advertising. Those big agencies like they have in Mad Men, that show where 100 people work in an office and come up with the logo for Pepsi. That doesn't really happen anymore. In the advertising world, there are teams that, like, the web developer lives in India, and the marketing person lives in Los Angeles, and you know, the art director lives in San Francisco, and somebody's on the phone with them on conference call or on Skype once a week, trying to develop a goal that they all have to contribute to.
Well, not to mention, there's going to be jobs that we don't even know exist yet.
Yeah, exactly. But collaborative. People have to learn to collaborate to work on a goal together. So they say one of the jobs of the future is a professional triber, someone who can identify what members of the tribe are needed to accomplish a goal and put together the right team and motivate them to reach the goal and monitor
That's funny.
reaching the goal. So collaboration. And think about what skills your kids need for the future. Apart from math and science and, you know, all those things, what skill set do they need to be successful? Building collective will and inspiring change. It's one thing for you guys to know where your goals are. It's another thing for you to be able to communicate to your community what your goals are in a really simple and way that makes sense. Don't be upset when there's dissatisfaction in your community, because this is what we say, we call it Wkshp's formula for overcoming resistance. You have to have a vision of what you want to accomplish. There needs to be a level of dissatisfaction, otherwise why would you change it if everything's going so well? Plus trust. Put those 3 things together and you can overcome resistance. I'm going to give you an example.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Now, is that a good statement of a goal? Very concise, easy for everyone to understand. Landing a man on the moon and bringing him successfully to Earth. What if he had said this? Our mission is to become the international leader in the space industry through maximum team-centered innovation and strategically targeted aerospace initiatives. Would it have had the same impact? But that's how we talk sometimes in education, right? We get a little complicated about the things. The reason his goal was able to be achieved is there was a level of dissatisfaction in the country. The Russians had made it to outer space first, and they polished the metal on Sputnik before they launched it so we could all see it from the sky. They did. And so this country was very, I don't know if you guys were around, I was a little girl, but you know, I remember my parents being upset that they were watching us, that they had a satellite up there before we did. And so there was this level of dissatisfaction. And my mom will tell you to this day, she's like, Kennedy could have said, we're going to raise your taxes by 180% to put a man on the moon. We would have all said, okay, right? Because there was such a level of dissatisfaction in this country that we were being beat at something.
I was in my 11th grade history class.
When he made that speech?
Well, no, when we heard about Sputnik.
When you heard about Sputnik, yeah.
And it was
I think
earth-shaking.
the first report I ever did, ever in school, was on Yuri Gagarin, the first Russian astronaut, right?
Yeah, but when they put that dog up, that really made
That really made you upset. It's a pet abuse.
Yeah.
So think about, and that's why I always refer to the governance calendar, think about what percentage of your board's time is dedicated to talking about your success. You know, we say in CSBA that we get caught up in our board meetings in the killer bees, talking about books, buses, bonds, budgets, and buildings. And in your guys' case, redistricting and things like that in high schools.
options.
So think about the things that are important to you and the goals you want to achieve and keeping those as top of mind awareness and ongoing conversations in your board meetings. This is this chart I found very disturbing when I happened upon it because I started to do some research on what percentage of school boards spend their time, you know, talking about the right things. So on the right-hand side is the national average. So the national average of school boards across the nation, high-performing boards spend 15% of their time talking about student achievement, which I still think is too low. But across the nation, most school board meetings only spend 1% of their time talking about student achievement, and 60% of their time talking about finances and facilities. Now, is that really what we're here for? Talking about finances and facilities? I know that's a big part of your job, but 60% of your time? High-performing boards only spend 10% of their time, and I think that's probably too much. So, anyway, you want to be in the column on the left if you're going to be in either of those columns, not the column on the right. And again, national average, only 5% of their time spent on community linkages, outreach to the community on the national average. It's disappointing. Your monitoring plan is obviously your governance calendar to keep, you know, what's important. We talked about boards.
Go back to that one quote for a second.
The Herbert Hoover quote, or the first one? The best leaders are the one who has the sense enough to pick good people to do what he wants them to do, and the self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it.
Those two, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to, so the Cubs, I'm a Cub fan because I was born and raised in Chicago, and it was interesting to me when they asked the owner of the Cubs, like, what made the difference from them winning the World Series last year to other years, and he said, it's easy, I hired a guy to hire good people and let them do what they do best, you know, so he kind of paraphrased Teddy Roosevelt in his quote. So these are the things that define your roles. We already talked about your norms and protocols. Institutional history, though, plays a bigger role in school boards than most people think about. You know, the way things, well, this is the way we've always done it. I especially see conflicts when I've had board members who've been on the board for 30 years and one that's just been on the board, and you know, you feel a little bit like an outsider when you're told this is the way we've always done it, and so this is how it has to be done. But I think institutional history, you know, Hannah is a jewel that you guys have that houses all your institutional history, because she's been here a really long time and can tell you sort of how things have gotten to be the way that they are,
Just a few more months.
and why they're important. So again, people feeling valued, people feeling empowered. It's not easy to go from me to we. She ran as an individual, but you serve as a member of a team. Just a reminder that the board decides what, and the superintendent and staff decide how. The last exercise I'm going to have you guys do, and then I'm going to let you go home, is this. So I want you to tell me, as a board, what do you think you need from the superintendent?
What do we need from the superintendent? Information.
And I'm not just saying this superintendent, in general, as a board, what do you feel like you need from the superintendent?
Information,
Think
isn't it?
about it, I'm going to start. So tell me what you think you need, Ms. Mark, this one for that.
Information.
Okay, yes. What else? What do you need from the superintendent?
Recommendations.
I'm going in the direction of vision, but in general, I'm not a big fan of vision statements because
Me neither.
they're meaningless. Yeah, so the superintendent knows a lot more than I do about why we're here and what it would take to get from here to here. And the superintendent, I think, can also work with us to decide where it is that we wanna go.
So step to move things forward and identify priorities,
Direction.
identify direction.
Once we have direction, we can all work together on priorities.
Accomplishments, what have we done that's right?
What else? Is that a good list? If you think of anything else you can shout about. So
Biggest problems.
I'm gonna say issues.
I'll also provide recommendations too, because we have to vote on it.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Scott, what does the superintendent need from the board?
I'd say, partnership.
Okay.
Clear communication of, their, I'd say, biggest desires or goals. Stability.
That's a big one, isn't it? Especially when you get a new board, you're running in this direction, and suddenly you get a couple new board members who want to take you in that direction, when you haven't even gotten to where you're going in this direction yet, so stability is a big one. And you know, again, if you're doing this right, guys, if you have some goals that you've identified are the hierarchy of things that are really important, and you all agree on that need to happen for your district, and you put the superintendent in charge of achieving those goals, whether you're here or not, those goals are going to move forward, even if there's a new board, because the superintendent can address, and the board members that are still here can address with new board members why it's important to continue in this direction, assess it, complete it and assess it before you go off in another direction. So you can leave that kind of a legacy if there is that kind of that stability. What else?
Trust.
I was hoping you would say that. I think that needs to go on both lists.
Yeah.
And more than trust, I like to say it this way. The perception that you're not here to do harm. So just the idea that you guys are all here with the right intention, right? Best intentions. That you all come to this, because I don't believe any of you would come to this without the intention of wanting to do good stuff for the kids in your district, right? So the presumption that you're all here, whatever comments you make, whether you agree or disagree, are because you want to do good things on behalf of the children in your district. So the presumption of the fact that we're all rowing in the same direction or want the same thing for our kids. So trust, really important. Okay, good list. All right, that's all I have for you, because most of you have been through Masters of Governance, and I have a few other slides, but you've seen them all. You understand what governance is and what protocols and things are, and I appreciate your open, candid discussions today. I think it was really helpful, and I think we got through what we needed to get through in your board self-evaluation, and like I said, I'm a resource for you. You can call me anytime if you're worried about how to navigate a particular issue or a particular thing that you want to have done, and I'm happy to give you my 2 cents for whatever that's worth. So thank you so much for inviting me here. I'll come back anytime.
Thank you very much.